Hi, this is Yvonne, and I'm here with Bill, and we're at the home of Susan and Chuck Canopi. And it's a little different today, huh?
Well, yeah, this house was actually on the tour once before, but it was about 5, 6 years ago, and the garden has really matured since then. At the time, it was a lot of new beds, and now you can see what has transformed. How time has been able to transform these beds into some really beautiful colors. She's got some shade areas. The trees have gotten bigger, so it's changed some of the landscape a little bit. And so we're going to look through a few of those things. But one of the things I wanted to point out that we haven't seen too much of, to my right here, are raised beds. If weeds have been a problem for you in the past, or getting to your garden has been trouble, or you have really bad soil, raised beds answer all those problems. If you build a bed up and then truck in whatever dirt, manure, compost, whatever it is you want to grow, or what to use to grow your plants, then you can truck that in and fill up a raised bed. You see, Susan and Chuck here have also gravelled around it, so you can walk around it. There's no weed issues, and you're not going to have very many weed issues in the bed itself. And if you'll kind of follow me a little bit, Yvonne, here on top of the raised bed, they've even mulched it, and they've used landscape fabric to even further ensure that they're not going to have to do any weeding. If you build a raised bed, you're an older person or you have back issues, you can build the bed higher, but even taking that 6 inches off the ground means that you've got that little bit of extra height. You don't have to bend so deeply. It's a lot more comfortable. If you want to go one step further than this, you can do something like installing a soaker hose underneath the landscape fabric, and then use like a quick release on the end of a hose, so that to water them, you just attach the end of the hose, and then it waters in the bed. So almost no watering, almost no weeding. Everything about a raised bed is in the startup cost. Once you cover the startup, then it's super simple after that.
Okay, wow. This looks pretty wonderful. I noticed here there are a few buds on there for tomatoes coming up.
Yeah, they got some open flowers, so they're going to be pushing right on that typical Kentucky date of around July 4th weekend for their first tomato. It's looking real good for them. Now, overall, Yvonne, the cool, wet spring we had means that early blights, some of the fungal infections that affect tomatoes are going to be kind of bad this year, and remains to be seen how well they do. But I will say that one of the things that you can help to defeat blight is, again, a raised bed. The soil temperature is warmer in a raised bed, helps the plants get going a little bit faster, and less likely, therefore, to get those blights going, and maybe the plants make it through a little longer and get a few more tomatoes out of them.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah, now if we can go over this way, Yvonne, I want to show you their compost heaps.
Okay.
I don't remember if we've seen a good compost heap in the past, but what they have here is what we call a 2-bin composter. And the way it works is basically you put in 10 to 20% what we say green and 80 to 90% brown. And basically the difference between green and brown is whether it's wet or dry. So they put in some table scraps. You can see some eggshells in there, some coffee grounds, watermelon rinds, and then they put some yard waste in there. And the key with the yard waste is you let it dry out. So if you have a lot of grass and it's choking up the mower and that, but you go back, let it dry out to brown, and then rake it up, that's a brown material. If you just mow the grass and grab that green stuff, that's green material. The key is that you want to keep your green material at a pretty low amount. If you have the right balance between 10 to 20% green, then it won't smell.
Okay.
If you have too much green, it'll smell like a garbage can. If you have too much brown, it'll tend to smell like moldy shoes. But if you have the right mix, and you can get pretty good at this after about a year, you'll get a nice balance, and then it won't smell. And the way these composts work is these boards that are sitting in the front aren't really nailed in, so that to access it, you can fill it up, and you pull all the boards out. You pull all the boards out to start with, then you can fill it up, and as you go along, you'll add a board, and then when you get to the top, it'll be totally full. Now, this is a fairly large composter here. They'll probably never fill these up because you need a lot of material to fill this up all the way. And I have a couple of acres, and I can't fill a bin this big more than once a year. So this is they can make a lot of compost in here.
And once you've got this compost made, then you can use it to put around your plants. Is that correct?
Exactly right. So one of the most nutritious things you can do for your soil on a lot of levels is to add compost. And what compost is basically organic material that has been broken down to the point where other plants then can absorb the nutrients from that original plant. Compost is usually made up of a mix of soil, It can be kitchen waste, yard cuttings, manure. I think they got some horse manure in there. I can see it. So you mix all those things together, and if you what we call stirring it or turning it over every few days with like a pitchfork, then you can turn it from a green leaf to compost in just about 3 or 4 weeks. They have some aftermarket or little market composters that are only 30 gallons in size. You can get them at different hardware places, and they go all the way up to, if you want to build a big double bin composter like this, then you can do that as well.